What's up, Generation? Welcome to Big Bets on Campus. This is the Final Four betting preview. I'm Stuckey, and joining me for today's show, my fellow BBOC co-hosts, Mike Calabrese and none other than Matty Cox from the Three Man Weave. Full disclosure, we are recording this on Friday night. A lot of us are traveling for the Final Four, so some of these numbers might have changed a bit. Market's been pretty steady throughout the week, so I'm not anticipating huge changes, but you never know. We're going to break down both games. We'll give out our favorite player props as well. And don't forget, we're going to have a national championship podcast preview that will be out by Monday morning. Big Bets on Campus, wherever you listen to podcasts. Probably have some type of player prop live show as well on Monday. More to come on that front. But gentlemen, we are here. The Final Four. It's the first time since 2008. I'm sure you've heard this countless times if you're watching. First time since 2008, we've had all number one seeds make it through to the last four standing. And for what it's worth, that was also in San Antonio. That year, we got a great national championship, but we had two blowouts in the Final Four, hoping we get a little more drama in these two games on Saturday. Matty, before we dive in to both these games, how you feeling? Do you think we're going to get some much-needed drama this weekend,
We
or is it
better.
just going to be Duke, Florida, and inevitability?
Well, we better get some drama. I mean, this tournament owes us as much, right? This was the table has been set. This is what we were promised, the four princes, but they got to deliver good games. I think the biggest, of course, moment will be if this results in two huge blowouts. After I think we've all sort of trumpeted the take that it's going to be two great games back and forth. And then you can see both teams winning by 15, and then it's not even a contest. And then Duke probably wins by 10. And then we all kind of go home and snooze until the 2026 season. So I hope the drama delivers because we are owed some. We are in debt to this
Yeah, we
tournament.
said it. We said it about last weekend. We were like, well, there was not a lot of upsets, but we're going to get a great Sweet 16 and Elite Eight. Wasn't that great outside of Texas Tech
One
and
game. Yeah.
Florida over the weekend. Uh, but yeah, it's a risky game to play. Like on paper, yes, we're going to get the best teams and the best games, but look, it's only three games. So, it's going to be a lot of three-point variance as there is in any college basketball game. But I am excited for both these matchups. Calabrese, are you feeling drama? Like all the drama's been in the NIT, or do you think we continue to get one-sided results?
I think the viewing public has just been beaten down by how low energy this tournament has been with so few games coming down to the wire. We just have to take a breath, zoom out. These are four of the top 10 teams in KenPom, not this year, in the KenPom database. So for any of these teams to win by double digits or win going away, when you frame it that way, it would be a big surprise. Now, I think we're all just on the side of let's just get some drama. Let's have some interesting basketball, even just some interesting live betting opportunities. Like if Duke goes down 10-2 early or something like that, and you can hop in on the Blue Devils on a plus number, that would just be exciting. Let's just mix it up a little bit. My expectations are low. Just give me something to get excited about. Luckily, there's just so many markets, player prop, exotics, everything to kind of fill up my plate and my card for Saturday. So either way, I'm going to be sweating things out. But I think we're not only due, but I think we're in line for some close basketball.
Yeah. By the way, we'll drop some quick slips in on picks that we give out on the show today in the description if you want to follow along. But let's dive right into the first game. It's an all SEC battle, and it's actually the first all SEC matchup in Final Four history. We're talking Auburn, Florida. The first meeting, Florida went into the jungle and had a pretty dominant win by a score of 90-81. They were double-digit underdogs in that game. I, almost about, I think, 2 months ago. Maybe not quite 2 months ago, but close. It's a pretty big power ratings adjustment here now that Florida is favored on a neutral, but they have been one of the four best teams in the country for most of the year. There are questions about Broome and his status. How I assume he's going to play, but how healthy is he? Is he going to be hampered at all? We'll continue to get more information on that front, but we might not really know to what extent until after the first tip. Florida, as of the time that we're taping this, 2.5 point favorite here. Totals ticked down a bit. Calabrese, what are you seeing here?
I'm leaning with the over here. I mean, we have a pair of top three Ken Palm offenses. As you mentioned, they already lit it up, scored 171 points in the regular season meeting, I should say. And you also have to keep in mind, it was a 12-point game with about a minute to go. Auburn gets an and one, and then they just gave up in the final 40 seconds. So there certainly could have been more point padding with fouls and three-pointers late. So I think, if anything, this game is going to lean closer to that original 170 and not the 160 that it's out there in the market. Also, I think in terms of pace and preferred tempo in this game, if you look at Evan Mia's adjusted tempo ratings and how teams play better slower or play better, faster, both of these teams, it seems to be their efficiency goes up. They play winning basketball when they play a little bit faster. So I think it is unlikely that either team is going to slam on the brakes and try to turn this into a half-court battle. And then finally, in terms of a comeback for whoever falls down, both of these teams are top 10 in kill shot runs offensively. We saw Florida's furious comeback against Texas Tech. They don't mind putting teams to the line and just bombing away from three. So I would be scared holding any under tickets in this game, whether it's first half or full game, but I'm leaning with the over at its current price at 160.
Yeah, I do think both offenses have sustainable paths to success here, much like the first meeting. But I think Florida on the offensive glass, that's always a weakness of Auburn's defense. Maybe they can get to the line some as well. But I think also Florida will be able to get in transition where they're deadly. Auburn will let you do that at times. That's not a good formula for slowing down Florida. And I think both teams, the versatility of their bigs, I think is going to pose problems for each respective defense. A lot of familiarity between these teams. Obviously, they're both in the same conference, but you have the whole Todd Golden, Bruce Pearl dynamic. Bruce Pearl used to be his mentor. That's where he started out. I think how this game might be decided. Obviously, Broom's health is a major question, but who makes the sharper adjustments coming into this game and then throughout due to the familiarity? Maddie, what are you seeing here? And are you hearing anything on Broom's status?
I
Yeah,
have no official
Jimmy Root,
sources.
he's supposed to be watching, right?
He's supposed to get at us, I think, about an hour with the live on-court report. Also, the rim tightness report will be accompanying that report. So very important for you over/under bettors. I do agree with Calabrese, though. The pace will be a fast one. I think Auburn prides himself on being the chameleon. Pearl's talked about how he can win ugly and win fast, but I think Florida, they just play one way. I mean, it's go, 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 and they kind of seduce you into that type of track meet. But I sort of like the scheme familiarity edge that you mentioned, Stuck, as well as just the simple, not to kind of, to play a broken record, but I think the motivational thing's real. I think this Auburn team has kind of reinvigorated itself by framing itself as the underdog, as wild as that sounds, because people kind of doubted them coming in this tournament. They're a little bit shaky entering the field off that really, I mean, just stunning, not embarrassing, but stunning loss at home to Florida. You mentioned they're 11-point dogs in that game. Was Florida. Florida was number 5 in KenPom at that time. Like, just think about that. The number 5 team was an 11-point dog on the road. Just kind of shows you how much Florida has really, climbed up the few rungs of the elite ladder here. But as kind of part of a 2-game play here with both these, not an official play for me, but I did, in full transparency, play both Auburn money line and Houston money line. I just think you're getting 2 elite teams. I don't know which one wins. I got a pretty good feeling one of them does, though. So just kind of a plus money 2-part portfolio here. Florida's got some matchup edges for sure. I think they can play that again. Elijah Martin could be huge in this matchup. Didn't play in that first game, obviously. But just kind of thinking that one of those 2 teams win. Auburn, Houston, I feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I will say I'm probably going to wait. I do show a little bit of value on Auburn. I don't think that there's much separating these teams. If you go to Torvik and you filter these teams, since, over the past month and a half, 2 months, you can get to this number. But I think Auburn's rating has been artificially deflated in a way since they were kind of coasting. I'm pretty sure that they were coasting to the end of the regular season, even to start the tournament, like some of these games in the first halves. So I'm probably going to wait to see if I can get a better number live. I want to get either more intel on Broom pregame or what I see with my own eyes. And this Auburn team does have a habit of starting slow. You mentioned the kill shots. There should be runs and a lot of points in this game. I mean, Auburn's 1-7 against the spread in the first half over their past 8. They haven't covered in the first half in 11 of their past 15 games. So I think there might be a shot to just observe what does Broome look like, and then if there's another slow start by Auburn, they're only covering the first half of the past 8 games against Michigan State, who's like just the only team that's worse than Auburn starting off games. So I might be an observer from a pregame side perspective, but a lot to monitor there. Before we get to some player props, quick ad read on Edge Boost, one of my favorite ad reads to do because I love the product. So if you're watching this show, you probably like betting as much as I do. And when it comes to betting, there are two things I always try to do: make it easier, make it more profitable. That's why I partnered with Edge Boost, the financial platform that pays you cash back to wager. Edge Boost is an online bank account that pays you for every deposit, because with the Edge Boost Visa debit card, you get up to 0.5% cash back on all your sportsbook, daily fantasy site, and casino transactions. That's free money back in your pocket just for doing what you're already doing. It's a no-brainer. This is not some credit card gimmick, I promise. When I first heard of it, that's what I thought. But I opened my own Edge Boost debit card account, made it so much easier to deposit into all my sportsbook accounts. There's no catch, there's no hidden fees, there's no minimum balance requirements, none of that. They make their money on volume, not off of you. So if you've ever had a casino transaction flagged by your bank because they thought it was suspicious, or have been given the runaround when trying to fund a sportsbook account online, as most of us have, the Edge Boost debit card is the perfect tool to alleviate all of those issues. It starts with a $250,000 daily limit and will never be declined for gambling activity. It's why I was happy to open an account and have been happy ever since. So make your betting life easier and stop leaving money on the table. Visit edgeboost.bet to sign up. And if you use promo code BBOC and deposit $25, you'll receive a $25 deposit match, plus Tier 2 status for faster bank deposits and more cash back. That's edgeboost.bet, promo code BBOC. Love Edge Boost. Okay, let's get to some player props. You can go to either game. Calabrese, I'll start with you. Where you headed?
You mentioned Janai Broome's injury situation. It's why I'm on his under 29.5 points and rebounds. Hyperextended his knee. You don't have to be a physical therapist or a surgeon to be able to see that on the screen against Michigan State. It looked like it would be an injury that perhaps would have knocked him out of the entire tournament. He also has an elbow strain in that game. He comes back in. The adrenaline's pumping. He feels great. He grabs the board, knocks down a three. Great story. Feel great for the kid. Want him to play. Let's all agree he's not at 100%. He also has that lingering shoulder injury. When you look at that, and then you look at the potential for the whistle to go against him, he got into foul trouble, fouled out in that game against Michigan. The difference here is that Michigan had two 7-footers. Florida's even deeper in their front court, and the guys are bringing off the bench. Hangleton, since the SEC tournament, has been averaging 12 minutes per game. He's just another body with 5 fouls to be able to pester Broome on the glass on both ends of the floor. So I see this as a potential for him to play sub his normal amount of minutes, which would be sub 30. If he goes in that 25-minute range, either due to injury concerns or being saddled with foul trouble, I think 30 is too many in this stat combo. So I'm going to go under. It's not the most exciting play because we've been rooting for this kid really the entire season. He was neck and neck there for National Player of the Year with Cooper Flagg for a minute until he suffered some of these injuries. Great story, really kind of the rags to riches college basketball story, starting at Morehead, ending at Auburn, dominating all throughout his college career. But I just think that there's too many unknowns working against him in this situation. At best, he's got to be 80% in this game just based on the visual evidence of how he was injured. So I'm going to go under on Broome.
Yeah, uncertainty there definitely could work in your favor. And he's going up against a very dominant rim defense that ranks in the top 10 nationally in near proximity percentage per Haslametric. So will not be easy to score at the rim. Maddie, what are you looking at from a player prop perspective for Saturday?
I'm going on the other side of this matchup here with Tommy Howe, kind of the darling role player ascension from Florida. He's been really shooting it well. He's just been a bigger factor coming down the stretch, even though that front line is deep. They have a bunch of interchangeable parts. He seems to be kind of that X factor with his skill and mobility. You've seen his minutes uptick, and you've also seen his just assertiveness offensively. Golden really showing some trust in him as a pick and pop threat guy who can space the floor, the way he can relocate. And in this matchup, we saw in the first meeting against these two, he was 1 of 4 from 3. And since that game, there's kind of a dip in his volume, but the last few, since he's really come on the tournament, he's firing. I think the volume's going to be there Just got to make one. Going to pull away Broom from the rim. Going to, I think, pull away Cardwell as well. That's going to be a key thing for Golden is they know he's hurt, as you just talked about. How are they going to exploit that on both ends? On offense, I think you got to force him away from the rim. He's been an absolute hungry hippo on the glass. I think he's going to be content to sit and camp in the lane on defense. That's where he's best as a rim protector. That's where he's best as sort of an opportunistic steals guy. But you got to force him away. And maybe on some switches, Broom gets cross matched with Howe, and I think he's going to have probably 4 or 5 attempts. Just got to knock down one. So minus 160 is the price for making a 3. Tommy Howe. Little stretch 4 action from Tommy in this one.
I'm gonna also go with a 3-point prop. I'm gonna go with the enigmatic Chad Baker-Mazzaro over 1.5 3-pointers. There's a plus 155 out there. I don't think that'll last, but I still like some of the other prices that are out there. I also played over 2.5 and over 3.5. Threw a couple darts. Hopefully get a good report on the rims later today.
Right.
But I think, look, if Broom isn't 100%, others are going to have to pick up the scoring slack. And I think there's a good chance that Baker-Mazzaro gets off at least 5, but I'm thinking more. And if he's on, his minutes are going to uptick. And it's hard. Like I said, it's hard to score against this Florida team at the rim. Auburn's going to have to make outside shots. Baker-Mazzaro is a guy who can get his own shot. He's attempted 23s through 4 tournament games. Yeah. So he's averaging 5 a game, and he's only shot 25%. So, maybe he's due for a good shooting night because on the season, he shot over 37%. Against Tier A opponents per KenPom, he shot in over 40%. And Auburn has a pretty big sample size of those teams. I think 87 attempts in those games. So this is a guy who can get hot. I think he made 4 twice against Ole Miss this year. I think he made 3 against Iowa State. So I'm going to take a shot on Baker-Mazzaro bouncing back. The other thing is some of his numbers. He's been dealing with nagging injuries. He had an illness. I think he's now fully healthy. So hopefully we get the good Baker-Mazzaro. And for what it's worth, he did clear 1.5 threes in around 45% of the games he didn't get thrown out in. I think he got thrown out in 1 game this year. So I think that, plus 155, which is out there right now. I'm going to take a shot here. Hopefully he doesn't get a flagrant and doesn't get ejected. But I'm going to go Baker-Mazzaro over 1.5 3-pointers made. All right, let's move on to the nightcap between Houston and Duke. As of the time that we're recording this, Duke is pretty consensus. Looks like 5-point favorite here. This is an awesome game. Rematch from last year, but both teams are going to look drastically different. Duke is much better. Duke won that game in an ugly one. It was in the low 50s, but Tugler didn't play. Shed got hurt. Duke is just a different animal this year. This is an elite offense versus an elite defense, but don't sleep on Houston's perimeter scoring, their offensive rebounding prowess, and don't sleep on this Duke defense either. This one, on paper, should be fantastic. However, is the line a little inflated? Calabrese, what say you?
Oh, I think so. I'm going to go ahead and take the points here. I got it at 5.5. Still like it at 5. Everybody has been giving the flowers to Duke, rightfully so. They're the #1 offense. They have a chance to finish as one of the highest-rated KenPom teams of all time. They've looked the part. But let me just start poking some holes here. Their strength of schedule, 54th for the entirety of the season. The ACC was way down. If they do win the national championship, they'll have one of the weakest strength of schedules in the KenPom era, dating back to 97. And where's the love for Houston? They just beat the brakes off of Tennessee. That was a top 5 KenPom team. They beat them by 19. They absolutely made it murderous in the half court for them with their monster defense, their blitz and ball screens. They're doubling in the post. They're coaxing teams into those cross-court passes. They force turnovers on 19% of opponent possessions, which is top 20 in the entire country. But when I look at the absolute formula to beat Duke, I think Houston kind of has it, to be honest with you. Look at teams that played really slow, delivered in the half court, could bury 3-pointers shooting, over that Duke defense. If there's anything that Duke gives up, it's those long shots. They give up, 177th 3-point rate, which is basically average in the entire country, because you can't get into the lane, you can't get near the basket. They're fortress-like there. Everybody's swatting shots. So do you have the shooters to take advantage? Well, Clemson did. They had a top 20 defense. They played slow. They shot 37% from 3. They beat Duke by 6. And the rest of the schedule, I don't really care what Duke was doing against those ACC afterthoughts, just bombing teams left and right. I think Houston is undervalued here. I think they have an opportunity to make it close, and I'm just going to take the points. It sounds like Matt is going to be a little gutsier and go with the Houston money line. I can understand that too, because how many close game situations has Duke been in the entire season? I know that it was like 5 months ago against Kansas and Kentucky, but they looked dysfunctional. They didn't know who was the alpha. Are they just going to let Cooper Flagg go in isolation and try to win them the game? It didn't work against the Wildcats and Jayhawks. So I think there's an opportunity to be able to execute at a higher level late in games. You got to remember, this Houston team played in 4 overtime games. They had a handful of other 2 possession wins. We just saw what they did in crunch time against Purdue, getting the inbound pass and getting the wide open layup to win it. That's coaching. Kelvin Sampson is a Hall of Fame coach. I love this guy. I've backed a lot worse coaches in the Final Four. So to be able to get 5.5 with a defense that, at least by KenPom standards, is the second best in the last 5 years. By Evan Mia, it says it's the best in his database going back to 2011. Great defense, great coach, and all the pressure being on Duke. I'm going to go ahead and take the points here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're a little too critical of Duke. I mean, they are fantastic. I think they've proven that just with the margin, how they beat some of these teams. But I've been saying since the beginning of the term, if the two teams that profile as the ones that can beat Duke are Tennessee and Houston. And Houston's a better version of Tennessee. It's you got to limit possessions, slow the game down, and you have to be physical. And Houston certainly is that. They have the bodies to throw at Cooper Flagg. This is a team that will control the tempo. And this is men versus kids. Can the men slow down the talented Duke kids?
Yeah.
Now, from a shot making perspective, it's going to be tough for Houston because the good thing is Houston doesn't try to score in transition. They don't try to score at the rim. You can't do either against Duke. Houston wants to live in the mid range. You can get that against Duke. We'll see if they change their defense a little bit. They're going to have to hit some outside shots. Can they deal with the length of Duke? Because their guards are going to be undersized here. We saw how much trouble Mark Sears had. They're going to have to hit some tough shots here. On the other end, Duke's probably going to get better looks. You know, those uncontested, catch and shoot threes. That's what you have to do against Houston. You have to move the ball. You have to hit, shooters on the weak side. And you have to hit those jumpers. Duke creates uncontested catch and shoot jumpers at the second highest rate in the country. The highest, by the way, was Purdue, who Houston survived against. Duke has more elite catch and shoot jump shooters than Purdue does, and their defense is also better. So this isn't an easy task for Houston by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think it's just too many points. I mean, I think this is a couple points too high. The key number to me is 70. And that's right around where the Duke's team total is. Can Houston keep Duke under 70? I don't think that they can keep up in a high-scoring game with their tough jump shot offense, because it's not going to be as easy to dominate the offensive glass against Duke as it is against some opponents. But if they can keep Duke under 70, especially like low 60s, high 50s, they're going to have a chance here to win this game. And to wit, Houston this year 32-0 when holding opponents under 70 points. When opponents touch that 70-point mark, 2-4 overall straight up. But I think it's too many points. I like the Cougars not getting enough respect. It's a team that's only lost one time since December 1st. And they went through the Big 12 gauntlet, and they went through the hardest possible path they could have had in the tournament. The only game they lost was in overtime against Texas Tech, a Texas Tech team, mind you, that should be here in the Final Four if they could have just made a couple front ends. Yes, I'm still bitter. Maddie, are you on board with the Cougs?
I am. I'm also still bitter about Texas Tech, so I'm with you on both those. In terms of a spread value perspective, I think it is maybe a point or two too many. I don't think there's any crazy value on Houston, because I think you have to respect just how dominant Duke's been, and I think there is upside just with Duke. We could see them cementing themselves as like an all-time great team if they come out and continue to dominate. But I like what Calabrese said. Duke has not been tested in close games. I think John Shire is vastly improved as a tactical coach this year. We've seen that and how they've kind of exploited some mismatches, but we have not seen them tested in a late game setting. And oh, by the way, remember like 3 years ago when it felt like Cooper Flagg was getting some flack for not being an end of game closer? He had a couple of mess ups. I believe it was the Kentucky and the Kansas game way back in November. Obviously, different player now, but still, there's not a lot of evidence of Duke winning close games. I believe this will be a close game because that's just who Houston is. I think they dictate that. Can they get enough stops? Can they make enough shots? I'm not sure, but I think in a low possession, low scoring type game, it's good for the variance lean toward Houston's way. That's why I like the money line here. Plus 220 to the average price right now out there. Again, kind of pairing this with Auburn in sort of a two-part money line parlay. I feel pretty good around a coin flip or slightly better that one of these two teams wins. Obviously, Houston would be the better one to win with the value. But I just think there's enough going for Houston here, especially we got to mention Joe Tugler. Has Cooper Flagg seen a defender like him all year? I'm not so sure. So we'll see how he it's Cooper Flagg. But he has looked mortal, didn't look awesome scoring the ball against Alabama. And again, I think the Tugler matchup could shell shock him the first few possessions until he gets used to him, gets his footing under him.
Yeah, Houston definitely is as well equipped as any team in the country to throw long, versatile bodies at Flagg. So can't wait to watch how he handles that matchup. Should be a great chess match throughout. But I think we're all on board with Houston in this one. That'll do it for us. Thanks to Maddie and Mike for joining me. Thanks to our producer, Gif on the back end. Most importantly, thanks to all of you for tuning in. Enjoy the games. Make sure you check out our podcast, National Title Preview, which will be out Monday. Good luck on whatever you're betting on. Hopefully we get some drama today and on Monday. But we will see you next week. Cheers.